our kids at. It does no such thing. Enough is enough. We unfortunately have a bill full of likely unconstitutional provisions. The measure would raise the age limit for purchasing a semi-automatic rifle or the sale of ammunition magazines with a capacity of more than 15 rounds. But the legislation has little chance of being passed in the Senate. The focus is on improving mental health programs, bolstering school security, and enhanced background checks. Mike Rosia, Washington. The House January 6th committee is hoping you'll tune in tonight at 8 Eastern when it begins its first primetime hearing. Democratic Congressman Pete Aguilar. We're ready to tell the story about what happened January 6th and what led up to it. The AP's Sunday glorious and chilling story about a conspiracy across the entire government. The helmet back in your neck should stand out. The panel's promising new and explosive information over a series of hearings, though it's unclear what that will entail. Republicans like Elise Stefanik are dismissing the entire program as legitimate. It is a smear campaign against Donald Trump. News for parents of little children. The White House says millions of COVID-19 vaccine doses have been ordered for small children as the nation waits for what may be federal authorization next week. In Ukraine, they're pulling bodies from each of the wrecked buildings in Maryland. An endless caravan of death, one official calls it. This is AP News. Russia is focusing on the eastern city of Severodonetsk in its battle in Ukraine as it tries to capture the Donbass region. The AP's Karen Shama has this report. Ukrainian soldiers dig in the trenches they've created, stopping only to hear the sound of shelling in the background. One soldier, calling himself Tiki, shows AP journalists around their new home, burrowed under the ground in the trenches. We're like Boy Scouts of the forest. We're the same. We invent new things.
I'm sorry?
We made a stick from plastic bottles. Another soldier chimes in. The only difference is they do not get shelled and we do.
Is Pastor Brooks there?
That's not Pastor Brooks talking. I'm not sure who that is. That could be the news broadcast.
Oh, no, it's not the news broadcast. I thought I heard some background noise. Let's just bring him up. Okay.
I'm Sharma, and I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Brown trains are standing at Irving Park. Police officers responding to activities in that area. Some slow traffic on the outbound Kennedy Expressway from Daigle to Harlem. Trips on downtown to O'Hare. It's 21 minutes. There's some congestion on westbound 190 as well. Inbound it's a 17-minute cruise. Times an hour, 23 minutes, 390 downtown. So it's not on 55 minutes. Good Parkway to 53. Cabs to Kavanaugh and Central to Pulaski. 35 minutes. The veteran from Orange to Saddle Lake Shore Cross Line. 12 minutes, 90 minutes downtown. Downtown on 57 is heavy in Moline. Manhattan Mooney Road to Bowling Road to Carpine. That's Hines to Calamuchee.
The John Hartman radio program provides all the intelligence, information, and insight you need to win the water cooler wars. Weekdays 11 to 2 right here on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
I just called Pastor Brooks twice, and I'm not getting any response.
Okay.
I think he's not.
No. Just keep, honey, just keep trying him. And if you don't have him by the time I come out of the news, I'll just move on. Just put it in my ear.
Okay.
Okay?
Back to D.C. All this money shows is how desperately the far right wants to take back the Senate. If Rick Scott, Mitch McConnell, and Senate Republicans get their way, working families would be left behind while critical programs like Social Security and Medicare would be under threat. Are you going to let them? We deserve better than the GOP and their self-serving agenda. Go to wisdems.org/taxplan. Sign up now to fight back. That's
We have 20 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
.org/taxplan. Paid for by the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Who's responsible?
It's 5 seconds.
Okay. Hey, everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Thursday, June 9th, 2022. Hope you are having a wonderful day already. I'm so glad that my morning stars are with me. I'm glad that you're with me, all of you who I cannot see. It's such a joy to walk down the street and bump into you. I'm coming to you from my home here, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. My home to the north in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Sydney, Chad Larson, and everyone up there. Much, much, much love. Let's talk about 2022 voting shenanigans. You know, we've been talking to you about going to vote.org, so that you can just check. It doesn't even take 5 minutes to find out if you're still registered to vote. But what if you woke up on the morning of the 28th here in Chicago? We just had 7 primaries on Tuesday, California, Montana, Mississippi, etc. What if you woke up and your precinct was closed? You know, most of us don't pay attention to these things until voting day or the day before. Well, now 73 precincts in Chicago alone will be closed. Some people have opted out, you know, things have changed since the pandemic and all of that, but we've now been trying to open up for more than a year. That having been said, these 73 precincts can impact up to 120,000 voters. 120,000 voters will be confused on June 28th. So I'm going to reach out to someone from the Board of Elections here. But I want to have a conversation with you about this because I feel like we're looking at voter suppression. We continue to think that voter suppression only happens in the South. They don't have it together. No. It happens everywhere. We've got a primary coming here in Chicago, and I'm not just saying this because my brother's in it. I'm saying it because I'm a concerned citizen. There was a time when you would have debates on television. For the federal officials, at least, for people running for Congress, certainly you want to know who your Secretary of State's going to be. We don't have any of that. Oh, it's online. No, everybody doesn't live online. If that were the case, then we wouldn't even think about network television the way that we do. So what's the deal? So now, how is it that we're going to have 73 precincts that are closed? How is it there is no full court press to tell me where I need to go vote? So you don't tell me what you think. 773-763-9278. And then, of course, we're going to continue this discussion on the January 6th hearings. That's tonight. Are you going to be watching? Some people might not. I want to know what you're going to do. And then we will talk about the Uvalde and Buffalo hearings yesterday. Did you see these parents? Did you see the only pediatrician in the town of Uvalde describe what he saw? Decapitated children. Bodies so pulverized, they needed DNA. They couldn't. This is what happened, everybody. So let's get to some of these headlines because we've got a lot to talk about today. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. I want to hear your voices today. Call me. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 76 degrees, partly cloudy. Did you get caught in the rain yesterday? I sure did. 80 degrees, mostly sunny up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. The Dow closed down 269 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 88 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 44 points. In the NBA, well, the Celtics came roaring back, didn't they? 116-100 over the Warriors. And they're still in Boston. Do you think the Celtics might close this out in Boston? Do you think they might beat the Warriors? I don't know. Oh, my gosh. This is so exciting. But, the Lightning will be playing the Rangers. They're all tied up in their series. Who will be in the Stanley Cup Finals? We don't know yet. The WNBA, the Mystics, 84. In a heartbreaker over the sky, 82, everybody. Major League Baseball, the Dodgers 4, the White Sox 1. And they will be facing off once again today. And then at the Twins 8, the Yankees 1, yay, Twins. They'll be facing off against one another once again today. And it's just exciting, everybody. The Cubs have a little time off, and good for them, everybody. We're now about to face a heat wave, everybody. That's what they're saying. This weekend will be a glimpse of the long, hot summer ahead for many Americans. Are you ready for that? Everybody, please take care. And, look out for the elderly. January 6th hearings tonight in prime time. The first televised hearing at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock for those of us in the middle of the country. What do you think is going to happen tonight? We're going to be talking about that right here. Are you going to be watching? Do you think it's important to watch? Do you think it's important that we continue to have these hearings? Well, guess who won't be airing it? Fox News. Nearly 1,100 segments on Benghazi. But Fox will not be airing this. They're under fire for this. So what do you think about that? They're declining to broadcast the first public primetime hearing of this congressional committee investigating the insurrection on the Capitol. What do you think about that, everybody? What do you think about that? They should do that. They should serve the public and not just a particular part of it. Uvalde parents recount shooting horror and plead for gun control. Did you see Mia Cirillo? This brave baby yesterday, 11 years of age, talked about surviving this tragedy, this massacre. And her father, Miguel, said, "This is not our Mia. This is not our TikTok dancer. This is not our playful Mia." She was not in Washington, but her father was testifying. He said, "This is not our Mia. She's outgoing, but it's not our daughter." Of course, she's been completely changed by this tragedy. Think about that, everybody. Think about that. Think about the Uvalde doctor who described in graphic terms what he found, how he found these children decapitated, bodies pulverized. Think about him. He's the only, Dr. Roy Guerrero is the only pediatrician in the town of Uvalde performing a great service there. And did you see the mother of Zanetta Everhart, her son Zaire? She said he has a hole on the right side of his neck. Of course, he is a survivor of the Buffalo massacre. She said he has a hole on the right side of his neck, 2 in his back, and another in his left leg. Now, I want you to picture that exact scenario for one of your children. And she asked the lawmakers to come help her clean her son's wounds, which is part of the care that she must deliver to her son because, of course, the people in Buffalo were pulverized in the same way. They, too, were killed and shot by military-grade attack weapons, everybody. What about the man arrested near Brett Kavanaugh's home, Justice Kavanaugh's home, officials say? Let's hope that our politics are not going in this direction, everybody. But it appears that they are. A man with a gun, Nicholas John Roske, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, from Simi Valley, California, was charged with attempted murder of a Supreme Court justice after he called authorities and said he was having suicidal thoughts and wanted to kill a specific justice. That's interesting that he is talking about killing a specific justice, but don't write these people off as crazy, everybody. Mental illness is a big thing, but a minuscule number of people who commit these awful crimes are mentally ill. If they're mentally ill and dangerous, why is the man who tried to kill President Reagan, why is he out today? He's going to be giving a concert. John Wayne Hinckley has been released from prison. He's going to be giving a concert. Now, he tried to kill a president, and he absolutely destroyed the life of Mr. Brady and his wife. Didn't destroy the life, but it certainly changed their life options. His life was completely changed. He had to leave the White House because he was paralyzed from the shooting. Come on, everybody, stop it. And so now, and he's mentally ill, but now he's going to be giving a concert for people. I can't take it. Pastor, I need some good news. Darius Brooks, give it to us. Give us some good news today. These people think I'm crazy, but I'm not.
No, you ain't crazy at all. I do have some incredible, crazy good news, and again, I'm so glad you have this segment on your program. Thank you. It is so important. I have friends, and I'm not joking with you, that listens to your program particularly. So the good news is because you give everything on your program. You give what's really transparent, what's real, what we are dealing with for real in this day and time. And then on top of that, you give them some good news. Santita, I'm not blowing smoke up you. I want you to know that you are doing an amazing thing, and don't you come down. Into the John, 1 John 5 and 7, there are 3 that bear record to use for thought today. Good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good becomes better and your better becomes your best. Santita, in John 1 and 5, there was a young man who needed healing. These are real stories, by the way. People that don't believe God is true and real. God is his word. And when you study it, you have aha moments. Jesus healing a man who had been crippled, Santita, for 30 years. This is a third of John 7 signs of Christ, or his experience with them in this world and him just like, what is going on here? Interesting, Santita. This crippled man expressed no prior knowledge of Jesus or not claiming for Jesus to be real in his life, nor any overwhelming desire to be healed by this so-called Jesus. I don't know who I'm talking to this morning. Jesus restores this man anyway, then tells him to walk, get up, take a back bed, and walk. And the caring of his mat working. The man is then confronted by local religious leaders. Look at what you're talking about today. But doesn't know who Jesus is. Jesus meets the man in the temple and warns him about the dangers of just uncertainty. Once the city's leaders found out that this man was responsible for the healing, they will confront him for violating the Sabbath or the experience, claiming that this man is equal with God. Or they might get, in other words, they might get on Santita about your show. Or they might get on Jonathan about running in the race. All those things are crazy. Santita, I'm going to get up out of here. A transgressor as a non-believer, God will not entertain. One's ignorant and one's religious ignorant, or one's intellectual arrogant. But he will consider or entertain those who have honest concerns, which then leads them to further study of some good information, or in other words, God's word, having a very clear vision of what you really desire allows you to create the strength and the posture needed for the sacrifice that you need to do to get what you need to get and to get what you want. Good, better, best. Never let it rest. So your good becomes better and your better becomes best. Don't worry about being good. Use the good you have and make it better. Often the life of the believer is a series of new beginnings. You minister out overflow. It's never about your situation, ever. It's always about how you view them. I'm out of here with this, Santita. You don't have to be someone else. You don't have to try to prove yourself. Just don't give up. The beginning is always the heart. Good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good becomes better. And your better
becomes best. Amen. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. In fact, we're going to have Pastor Darius Brooks and the Tommies at the Rainbow Push Convention. I hope that you all will be there June 18th through the 22nd. And they'll be joining Johnny McClurkin and Vicky Winans, Pete Buttigieg. That's right, Secretary Pete Buttigieg will be there. The Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights will be there. There's going to be a huge voting summit. And we want you to be there at the South Shore Cultural Center. Go to rainbowpush.org. Morning Stars, I really need to see you there. Morning Stars, even Eric Burrows out in California. Or Kelly Ford out there in Colorado. How you doing, girl? Sending you much love. And Philip in Pennsylvania. Please go to rainbowpush.org and get registered. But it's free. So just come to the Cultural Center starting on the 18th of June. Everybody, very, very quickly, because I've got to pivot very quickly, Pastor Brooks, to Dr. Knight and have some important questions, health questions to ask her. How can we come to your church and when can we come there? Because so many people who are driving Lexuses, who are living in their Lexuses, people who are driving Mercedes are now living there. A lot of people are struggling. How can we come to your church and get food, and where do we go?
Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. That's gracecentral.net, gracecentral.net, gracecentral.net. From Tuesdays from 5 to 7 for the open public, and on Wednesdays we do seniors from noon till 2. so they won't be out in the evening. And Santita, they are in their Lexuses, cars, and
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. I mean, look, this is serious business out here. That's why we have to talk about the price gouging, because everybody is doing poorly, but the corporations, they're making more money than ever before. Gas does not have to be $7, $8, $9, $10 a gallon in the United States. That's ridiculous. They're making more money than ever before. The food that you're buying in the grocery store, it doesn't have to be this expensive. This is ridiculous. This supply chain, I want to know how it got disrupted and why it's still disrupted 2 years later. Are you kidding me? Stop it. Stop treating people as, because people are already suspicious of the establishment. And they should be. Because they're doing fine. We're the ones who are starving out here. I love you, Pastor Brooks. Sending you much love. Let me get to Dr. Shanina Knighton. Dr. Shanina Knighton, infection preventionist, registered nurse. Of course, she is at Case Western Reserve University as a clinical research scholar. She teaches there as well. Before we get into the summer safety protocols, very quickly, I know we only have about 6 minutes here. I want to ask you, what do you do when you encounter someone who has COVID? Because now more and more people are having COVID, and we're seeing the data that's coming back. That's kind of stunning, that most of the people who are presenting, sicker have been vaxxed, they've been boosted, but they're still getting sick. But more and more people are not wearing masks. They're observing no protocols. If you have been exposed to COVID, what do you do? Whether you've been vaxxed or not, what are you supposed to do? Dr. Knighton.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Making sure that you isolate yourself, so that being in your own space, away from others, and letting people know, whether that is your employers, whether that is your family members, letting those around you, especially that you've been around within those last let's say 48 hours, let them know, like 48, 72 hours, letting them know that you have been around somebody and that your tests are pending. While your tests are pending, you should not be around anyone. You should be at home. It is an inconvenience, and I want to just tell people that first and foremost. However, that inconvenience is then questioned against ethics. And the problem that I see arise, and I see people do the wrong thing often, is that they will be diagnosed with COVID, or they'll be waiting on a pending test. They're still out at parties because they might have purchased a ticket, right? Or they're still going to go to a play. They're still going to go to a concert because, oh man, I was around such and such or whatever, and she tested positive, and I'm waiting on my test, but I got this to do. So it's the inconvenience and it's the selfishness that has us in this current situation right now. So essentially, people really should be at home waiting their test results, so that way they can make sure that they don't make anyone else sick. During that time in which they're waiting, your primary care doctor should be listed on the refrigerator, and someone around you should know of your condition. You should also, if you are starting to have signs and symptoms, actually write down, or even with us having technology now on our phones, you can take notes on your phone and do a voice to text recording of just what your symptoms are. So at 8:30, I started to have a tickle in my throat on this particular day. At this particular time, I noticed that my eyes started to get puffy, or I started to notice I had shortness of breath. And then at that point, at the shortness of breath, you should be going in to see somebody. But a lot of times, when people's symptoms get bad, they're still ignoring those first warning signs. And as we know, the conditions can change really quickly. So it's essential of why people wait, that they're doing those things. Masking, you should be masking, even if you're outdoors. I have a little cousin, and we went to an event recently, and I said, oh my gosh, I said, we're outdoors, you have that mask on. And she said, yeah, I feel like I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold. I can't confirm it, but I was forced to come here by my parents. So she literally sat in the corner with her mask on outside because she said she didn't want to get anybody sick. So,
Thank you for that.
These are the situations that are happening often.
Mm-hmm.
I know that people, again, will not like the fact that they're being asked to mask. People are not going to like the fact that even still, right now, we're still emphasizing hand hygiene. But See, this don't sound crazy because I actually said during next month, I'm going to literally just walk around. So I have a portable sink. I'm just going to walk around and I just want to observe people's hand hygiene protocols with hand soap and with hand sanitizer. And I'm talking about randomly going around and just seeking this information from the public. Because what I will tell you is that we still are likely at that 3 to 6% right now of people that are not cleaning their hands correctly. We're starting to see now that parks have not increased the supply of hand hygiene materials for kids to practice in between cleaning in the playground. So because things have been ignored, the funding has started to go down. The protocols and the things that should be put in place in order to be able to keep the public safe have failed to the wayside. But yet we're still focusing on other things that are not of the priority or should be of less priority than people here. And we're seeing the numbers go up. And I don't know if you saw the New York Times article this morning, but they're saying that this is actually the first time in history, which again, the data still has to be looked at, but this is the first time where the deaths of whites have outpaced minorities when it comes down to COVID deaths. And again, that still requires work for me to look into, but it still helps us to understand that we really have so much work to do in this area, and we have to stop ignoring infection prevention.
You know, we really have a lot of work to do because, I mean, I've been exposed to COVID a few times since I've had it. And it's like, I mean, what do you shut down for 2-3 days, 4 or 5? How, I mean, I've just been exposed and fortunately I've been negative. I don't know if my antibodies are working for me, but I've got about a minute here. If you've been exposed, what do you do? I mean, do you isolate for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days? What do you do?
You isolate. Those days should not start until after your symptoms have subsided. So that is after you're no longer coughing. That's after your nose is no longer running. That's after you're no longer exhibiting symptoms that you then should start counting your days. Not just 5 days and now if you're still symptomatic.
Okay, what if you're not symptomatic and you've just been exposed to someone who has COVID? What do you do?
Then you should be waiting 3 days and then go get tested and confirm that you have a negative test before you go on about your business.
Okay, it's important to know. And just, I ask that question, everybody, because I know 3 people who just told me that they have been exposed to COVID. I haven't seen them, but I said, you know, okay, so are you? Oh, so you're down for the count. 2 of them, you know, said no, I'm isolating. Another one was like, well, no, you know, I've got to get on a plane. I said, oh, whoa, whew. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to make sure that you don't have it before you get out here, because you just might have it. But I think that because we've been vaccinated and boosted, people think that, you know, I'm okay. The thing is, these vaccinations, these shots protect you. They don't protect anybody else from you. The masks protect you from others. That's why that's important. Everybody, let's talk about these 120,000 Chicagoans, up to 120,000 Chicagoans who might not know where to go vote on June 28th because their precincts are closed. Talk to me, somebody. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in a minute. Dr. Knighton.
Good morning.
Girl, I just love hearing your voice in the morning. How are you doing?
Good. That's so crazy. Maybe your one friend did that because your one friend is, believe it or not, like a whole bunch of other people.
I'm just, you know, I don't know.
I'm here.
I mean, because I'm told that I'm a little paranoid because, you know, I get in a car and I'm like, I have my mask on. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, I had to say to one of my friends, I said, no, let's open. We got to keep the windows cracked. Let's keep this air moving in here. You know, I was like, well, what are you doing? And, you know, well, you're just, oh, look, I mean, because my mother was like, oh, so you're just the expert. I said, no, I'm with people who are experts. and I asked a lot of questions. I said, and the more I asked you and Dr. Deb some questions because I want to know.
You are an expert, and I think that is the biggest thing. My aunt is an expert, okay? So when I tell you, she didn't graduate, but I tell you this, she got those protocols set up at her house and she's been COVID and illness free. During all of this time, she has no.
I mean, it's just like, yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, it's just been like, whoa, what are you doing? And well, that's why I had to ask you, because now that's part of, I guess, the summer safety, because now people are out here. People are out, and observing these protocols is not something that they're doing. I mean, they're not. I mean, everywhere I go now, no one is masked at all. I mean, in public spaces where you have 50 people, 100 people, 200, 300, several hundred people, nobody's masked indoors. So just so that you know. Hey, Matt Sowell, how you doing up there at AM 950 Radio? Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I'm going to watch these hearings tonight. So it's going to be 90 minutes. It's going to be nice and tight. And it's going to be a television show. So I think it'll be really great. Really, really interesting. Really interesting. So, well, it's good hearing your voice. You want to stay with us so you can hear about how 120,000 Chicagoans up to 120,000 Chicagoans might not know where to vote?
Yeah, let's take on for a second.
You can't make this up. You just can't, y'all. And then someone was trying to kill Justice Kavanaugh. But sadly, I think it's going to come. I think, our politics have always been very violent. And I take no joy. I did not support the Kavanaugh appointment, but I have to tell you, as someone who grew up under the shadow of assassination every single day, I never, ever, ever thought I'd have my father past the age of 39. Because the people in his position didn't live that long. They lived to 39, and that was it. So that, in my mind, I was on the clock, because that would have taken me to my senior year in high school. And it did.
Ms. Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
I have Reverend Wilson, Attorney Connolly, and Attorney Jones up. I'm going to be calling Attorney Hoffler in a few minutes. She was in a conference, but she's wrapping it up. Did you want me to have Chappelle on for this segment or for the top of the next hour?
No, have her on for this one.
Okay, let me call her right now then.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for asking. And so I take no joy in hearing that someone was threatening his life. I know what it's like for an assassin or a would-be assassin to come to your home. I know that. I grew up like that. That having been said, it's an ugly period that we're living through. So there we go.
And guess what? And I know that it is, but I think that's all of a reason for being there.
Chappelle's on, by the way.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Want to hear your voices today. What do you make about this 2022 midterm season? We're in it, everybody. We're in it. I hope you go to vote.org. Vote.org. You need to make sure that you have not been purged from the voter rolls. And I want you to join us at the Rainbow Push International Conference, June 18th through the 22nd. As we talk about voting rights, voter suppression, we talk about really opening new markets. There are so many places where you can be employed, and not just employed, where you have entrepreneurship opportunities. We're going to be talking about that at the convention. You'll meet Secretary Pete Buttigieg. You will meet the Attorney General for Civil Rights, U.S. Attorney General for Civil Rights. So many people will be at the convention, and we hope that you will too. It is free. Go to rainbowpush.org and meet us at the South Shore Cultural Center on the 18th. Meet Donnie McClurkin, yes, Donnie McClurkin and Vicky Winans, oh my gosh, and Pastor Darius Brooks and the Tommies. It's going to be a great convention, and we want you to be there. And of course, we're going to have a special celebration for Fathers and for Juneteenth. Everybody, Paul, I want to see you there. Miss Garcini, Zipser, and Carol O, should come in from California, sending you much love. We're going to be talking about the 73 precincts that are going to be closed in Chicago. Yep, I think it's a form of voter suppression. We've not had televised debates for these candidates who are running, and now we find out that 73 precincts for various and sundry reasons are going to be closed. I don't feel good about that. But before we get to that, we've got Chapearl, who threw a beautiful wedding for her daughter this past weekend, but she is still feeding everybody, getting everybody together for this through this wonderful summer season and getting folks together for their proms and their weddings and on and on. Celebrations by us, Chapearl, what's going on?
Yes, good morning, Santita, and yes, we are still cooking, so please don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546. We're into the summer season, so we're barbecuing. We have your ribs, as well as also your burgers, hamburgers, hot dogs, hot links, whatever it is that you need, along with your sides, your potato salad, spaghetti, mozzarella, baked beans, whatever it is that you need. Don't hesitate to give us a call. And we're still doing our full decor as well as also our sweet table setup. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Oh, amen, amen, amen. You are very, very welcome. Thank you for the great things that you do in the community. Of course, Chapearl's podcast, Somebody, is, you can get it on The Intercept, and more than 2 million people have downloaded it. It's one of the most widely listened to podcasts in the United States today. Everybody, precinct problems in Chicago. That is one of the headlines. The other headline from the Chicago Tribune: in Chicago, 73 precincts will be without primary polling place. And here from WTTW-TV, public television here, all prepped to vote with nowhere to poll. 73 precincts in Chicago have no designated polling place for the primary election. I was reading Politico, which I read every day. And they have, politicos for not just coming out of Washington, the national Politico. They have Politico for your various states. So, of course, I signed up for Illinois and a few others because I want to know what's going on. And then I saw this scoop from a few days ago. Officials at the Chicago Board of Elections, it reads, says 73 precincts throughout the city won't be operating for the June 28th primary. And officials are now clamoring, they continue, to locate new polling sites for the November general election. The precinct vacuum, everybody get this, affects 120,000 registered voters across the city, including voters from 9 precincts in the 42nd Ward, which is a high voting area. So what do you think about that, everybody? Now, the city has more than 2,000 precincts spread across all 50 wards. But 120,000 voters could be impacted by the closing of 73 precincts. Is it one of your precincts? What would you do if you got up and went to go vote in your normal place, which, we all have a place where we go vote, right? And then you found out that it was closed. What would you do? What would you do? Most of us are going to work, on our way to work, and we're going to vote. We have a routine, and we wedge voting into it, right? So think about that. I have a tremendous panel who are going to help us to tease all of this out. We're going to be covering this extensively, and I hope that you'll meet me. Jennifer Bishop Jenkins and I will be at New Covenant Baptist Church at 77th and Cottage Grove on Monday. Morning Stars, I hope you'll be there, 6 to 8 p.m. Jonathan Jackson is going to be having a town hall forum on gun violence. I will be moderating it. And of course, there will be many journalists there who will be asking their questions. I want you to be there. I hope you can be there. Chapearl, if you are here, and Renee and everybody else. Ashley, it's okay. You're down in Memphis, but I hope you're going to come here for the convention. We have got Attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of the Rainbow Push Coalition, immediate past president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world. Attorney Aaron Connolly, a noted activist here in Chicago and around the country. And cannot wait to hear your thoughts about this. I wonder if this impacts you. I don't know how many people would not impact. And then we've got Attorney Darrell Jones, the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. I'm moving a little too fast today. And of course, he and Attorney Barbara Arnwine are probably our leading lawyer advocates for the vote. And I want to welcome you all to the show today, but I'm going to start off with you, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, as we move around everyone else. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Effie Rolfe, I know you wouldn't be happy, right, if your polling place was not moved, closed. Like, where do I go? What's going on? Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire, of course, you are coming out of the Rainbow Push Coalition. What are we to make of this?
Normally, I would be just completely alarmed, and so I did check with the Board of Elections to find out what happened. It is my understanding when COVID first hit, many buildings, high-rise buildings and senior buildings, refused to have the polling places in their buildings. Many of those polling places that were in the 42nd Ward are in high-rise buildings, and they did not want the traffic in their buildings, which also impacted the people that live in the buildings because all they had to do was ride down the elevator to their respective polling places. It is my understanding also that the Board of Elections, Chicago Board of Elections, filed a lawsuit in court challenging the refusal of these buildings owners and residents to allow the polling place to exist, and they then were desperately trying to find alternative locations for polling places. Even a number of schools have said during COVID they didn't want the precincts there because you have, just people coming and going. What they have done is expanded early voting sites, and they have sent mail-in ballots, is my understanding, to every registered voter in those precincts and in those buildings, giving them an opportunity to vote by mail. And they have, they being the Chicago Board of Elections, has also created these super sites for voting. This, however, still creates problems because, as you say, most people have a routine. They vote the same place every time. Every time you change the polling place, as all of us know, you lose voters, you confuse voters, and you create problems. Mm-hmm. But it's not the intent of the board to eliminate. And it is also my understanding that in 2020, when they first had this problem, they had 143 polling precincts that were impacted, and at least it has been cut in half.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask, before I go to you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, and you, Attorney Aaron Connolly, let me ask you about this, Attorney Darrell Jones, Chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition. I mean, when we look at these voter problems, right, we focus on the South, and we focus on Black people and brown people in the South, from Texas all the way around up to Virginia. But we can see there are voting problems everywhere. And I have to tell you, this raised my suspicions immediately because when my brother Jesse ran for Congress in '95, there were televised debates. We don't have that now for people who are running for Congress. What's online? Oh, please, put it on TV. What are you talking about? Put it on TV. Let people know that there's an election coming. I don't really see a full court press with that. And then you add into the mix up to 120,000 people could wake up on the 28th and go, wait a minute, where am I supposed to go now? And I don't have the time to do it. Can you speak to this, Attorney Jones?
Oh, absolutely, Santita. And you're absolutely on point with regards to people always focus what's happening down in Georgia, what's happening down in Louisiana, what's happening in other areas of Florida and other areas of the country. But sometimes it's right at your home where it's happening, and that's what we see happening now. And, let's understand and let's be clear that, the pandemic isn't new. So when you start talking about the reason being that there's a pandemic and things are closing, this is your responsibility. You're the election board. This is what you do. This is the heart of what you do. Holding elections is the process. that you are principally concentrating on. And let's be clear with this, right? Because we know that many of the Chicago area polling places are the ones that are being affected. The suburbs are not as affected. So we know that there's a concentrated effort of what's going on here. So, one of the things that we've got to really take notice of, and Reverend Wilson was absolutely on point, when she said, people are trying to push in their schedule time to vote. So they have their routine down. They know where they want to go. And they're limited, and perhaps they're working the late night shift. They've got the children responsibility, so there's only a certain period of time that they have to get in. So when they get to that polling place and they can't vote, it's not there, and they haven't been informed, they don't know what's happening. And the frustration will potentially have them not exercise that right to vote. We don't know that they're going to take the extra steps now to try to figure out, how do I correct this? How do I get my vote counted? How do I get in? It creates confusion, frustration. All of these things are a piece of this. You don't resolve that by sending out a mailer, because the chances are the mailer won't be read. You can't resolve that by an email. So the question becomes, how do they now reach these disenfranchised voters? That's what they've done, is they're disenfranchising these voters to make it more difficult. So there has to be a whole concerted effort to make that occur. And it's just horrible that it occurred in the first place, and there weren't preemptive measures that were taken initially to inform everyone of this. So, one of the things, particularly in the state of Illinois, that I would encourage people to do right now is to go to elections.il.gov and take a look, and they'll tell you where your polling places are. It should be updated, but you know exactly where you can go. It also walks you through what's necessary for the vote by mail options and just the ability to plan your vote. Right now, the most important thing is with the situation that we're experiencing in Illinois is to get the information out so that people can access the information so they know how to vote, because you got to get the people where they are to inform them. Sending them something in the mail ain't going to do it. Sending them out an email ain't going to do it. You've got to have multiple layers that are out there to let folks know where they are supposed to go and vote and how to exercise their franchise. It's really frustrating to have we are the model for getting people out to vote, the model for being certain that people's right to vote are not being suppressed. And we run into a situation like this. So, right now, though, the focus has got to be to get the message out so that people know how to exercise that franchise, how to best exercise their vote. And Santita, as you always love to say, they've got to plan this vote. It's more important now than ever to figure out, number one, to go check your status, to where your new polling place is, if there's a new polling place or location for you, and plan for how to get it done so you can get that vote exercise. But I agree with you 100% with regards to what's happening there and the frustration that many voters are going to be facing.
Well, my frustration is that when the government wants to find you, they find you. To pay your taxes, if you run a red light, they know how to find you, and they know how to tell you to go get a vaccine. They know how to, but they don't tell you about getting health care. So, but but they don't tell you these things. They tell you what they want to tell you. They don't tell you what they don't want to tell you. And this is just troubling to me that, we're in the midterms, Attorney Jones. Daryl, we're in the midterms. People already don't vote in the midterms. Hold on one moment. Hold on, because I got to switch. Hold on. Yep. Go on.
One of the things I think that one of the things that we will do at Push in Chicago is we will be convening a clergy so they can start doing the messaging to people. And we have to have souls to the polls. We've got to really communicate. And the other thing is getting all of our radio people doing what you're doing, giving people the information, because it is a silent kind of move. And even though they went to court, I had to call them. They didn't call me and say, hey, we got a problem at the Board of Elections.
Wait. Say, stop right there. Stop right there. See, because I read Politico, I bumped into this 2 or 3 days ago, okay? No one has made any kind of phone call. No one has made any kind of full court press to let people know, hey, we're going to have a problem June 28th. No, I know we're together. I'm just expressing what I have shared with people. Reverend Wilson. What's going on? They're like, my God, what is going on here?
It's not a big deal because it's concentrated in the 42nd Ward, one of the highest turnout wards in the city. And says, oh, well, so I just think that this is an opportunity. We have a couple of weeks to really educate people. And it really says to people, we have to help you know where you vote, when you vote, how you vote. We have to keep that in mind. And we've done that in the past. We've got to do it now at a full court press. Because as you say, in this congressional race, in the first where I live, you have 20 candidates. There's been no push to really expose the different candidates, the differences between them, to make sure that people see this is an important election. This is significant.
But you know what? It's not.
You got all of your House, your Senate, Illinois Senate, right. Illinois representatives. All of them are running across the country. This is an election in our lifetime.
Well, also, let me say this as I go to you, Attorney Connolly. I mean, the fact is now, beyond the 1st Congressional District and the 4th Congressional District, I mean, you have the only people who are reaching you are the people with a lot of money, Aaron. Okay? I mean, we just basically had one of the congressional candidates, Pat Dowell, great alderman here in Chicago. She said, why did you pivot out of the Secretary of State race? As important as the Secretary of State is, she said, well, all the money she needed to raise for the race, because the leading candidate in the race, who is a friend of mine, I like him a lot, but he's a very wealthy guy, so he can get on TV, right? Mr. Irvin, who's running for governor, he has more than $40 million behind him from a billionaire. You can get on TV, but if you don't have that kind of money behind you, you are in trouble. And I'm just saying the Board of Elections somebody needs to give them some money, or they need to dig up some money to get on TV and radio and tell us that the precincts will be closed. Attorney Aaron Connolly.
Well, I agree. And as a person who's been talking to voters during this election, doing my part on the phone banks, right? I hear more frustration from folks who are tried and true voters because their congressional districts have changed without enough notification. They're confused about how to get a ballot or where to early vote. The early voting sites were delayed by almost 2 weeks in Chicago as well because they needed to reprint ballots to take off the ward map referendum after the debate in city council. So voters are confused and a little bit frustrated anyway. And we're in a very important Democratic primary in Illinois that will determine who is going to be on the ballot in November. That's a big deal. And as most of your listeners know already, but it's important to say again, the turnout is always lower in primaries, right? This is not the general election. This is not it's summertime, which it has been great for folks because you don't have to knock on doors in the freezing Chicago winter. But also, I think it's unfortunate that the board didn't anticipate some of these issues with staffing being changed in the summer for some of the schools, communicating with these larger buildings who didn't want the traffic or headache during a pandemic. Because I'm looking at some of the wards affected. We have 32, 42, 44. At least they're on the north side, and we're not seeing the same map of Chicago that we always see, right? However, in those areas, there's vacant, accessible businesses. There's corridors of small businesses that have closed during the pandemic. We could have set other super precinct sites up, communicated to these folks. My biggest concern is that the people who are most likely to vote in person are the people who have been doing it the longest, which affects our senior population, right? These are people who have voted in the same place for 20, 30 years, now walk over to their location and have potential mobility issues, have to get a ride, and those are the people that will be disenfranchised. So I encourage the campaigns who are actually doing grassroots outreach, who are calling voters, knocking on doors, and doing that type of community work, and not just relying on the big money on TV, radio, and what have you, to make sure that they're reminding people of these issues. It's really important. It's not enough to just say,
go vote. Let's give them the tools as we're making these calls, as we're reaching out to voters to say this is how we can help you vote. If you have a problem getting your mail-in ballot, do you need a ride to the polls, right? So thank you to the Rainbow Push team who is continuing the polls program. As we see in many places throughout the country, there's been actual laws put in place to prevent those types of programs from happening. So thank you for making sure that our folks have the opportunity to exercise this important right. But we as a city, as a county, whomever can help facilitate this in the future, we have to think about this going into November. Are we going to have these same issues? Are we going to have, what is going to be the impact on the population that is most difficult to get around anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my biggest concern, is that folks will be so frustrated that they won't participate, and that by that time it's too late for them to get a mail-in ballot. So I encourage everybody to go to one of the early vote sites if you can. There are many open in each ward and each precinct, and then there's the super site that is now finally open downtown that we voted at last time, Santita. So there are options available. But for those folks doing grassroots outreach, let's make it as easy as possible for our folks to vote.
Well, number one, let's make it possible for our people to vote. We're going to be talking about this more. CK, we're going to hear from you, Attorney CK Hoffler, on the other side, because this is something that concerns me. We tend to look at these kinds of voting issues. Oh, it's only in the South. That's not true. That's happening all over the country. All over the country. And there needs to be a concerted effort by the Board of Elections here in Chicago, in the county of Cook, in the state of Illinois, and all around the country to let people know when their precincts are closed. And mind you, post-pandemic, a lot of people don't want to let folks in their buildings. I get that. But y'all can come up with something else. You can erect a tent across the street. You could do that. So that people, if they look to the left, they look to the right. If they look to the right, they look to the left. The voting, they have access to the vote. That's why we need our voting rights protected, everybody, because of situations like this. Now, I'm not going to let this go. I'm going to be like a bulldog on this. If it's the Soul Coast, if it's the Gold Coast, if your vote is threatened, it bothers me. I don't care whose vote is threatened. If your vote is threatened, mine is threatened. We are all inextricably tied together, as Dr. King said. We are woven. We are in a single garment of destiny. Let's deal with that. Soul Coast, Gold Coast, wherever the votes are missing, wherever there's a problem, let's make it right. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. June 18th through the 22nd. I hope that you will be at the Rainbow Push Convention. Go to rainbowpush.org. It's free. It's going to be great. And then June 13th, on Monday night at 6 o'clock, I hope you'll meet me at New Covenant Baptist Church. The great Stephen Thurston Jr. That's right. That's right. Well, actually, Stephen Thurston Sr. That's right. He is going to be hosting. His church will be hosting Jonathan Jackson's town hall meeting on gun violence. You all have a lot to say about it. I want you to be there. I'll be moderating. So I want to see you, Morning Stars. Come on. I'll see you. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. All right, everybody. CK, I've pulled you out your meeting, but I'm going to bring you on at the top, girl.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you. Oh, boy. And now it's interesting. The Politico article goes into, they're the ones who give you the numbers of up to 120,000. If you look at the local reporting, it's just under 60,000. So I'm leaning on those numbers. You know, it's just 60,000, 120,000 is a whole lot of people who could be confused on election day.
One of the things the board is setting up, they have different alternative reentry sites since they had the problem.
And
so that's why you have a different number.
You know, and I think I hear them. The problem is we got a problem. And it's only because I'm kind of scoop newsworthy and I read some of everything that I bumped into this. It took me a couple of days to bump into this in the Chicago papers. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And you know, the original idea of this country, in this country, was for everyone not to be able to vote. Only the oligarchs were supposed to vote. Propertied white men. That's it. So let's not, be lulled into a lie of a notion that the vote was open to everybody. It's never been. Never. We've all had to fight for it. We've been expanding the franchise since we've been here. First of all, you had to establish it for someone who was not a royal. You know, we just keep on going with this, but this is crazy to me. But you all talk amongst yourselves. You're on Facebook Live. Keep talking because I'm looking at a few other things. Oh, please don't all speak at once, everybody. Hello.
And CK, we really when you're on, talk about lawyers around the country, how this mobilized for this election, state by state, city by city, because there's so many tactics to suppress the vote and to reduce the vote across the nation, not just in the South, as we've been talking about.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, hold on. Jeanette, Erin wants to come to, she wants to know if there's a women's luncheon. Erin?
Yeah, Wednesday, June 22nd, we're at South Shore Cultural Center, and certainly we need to have you participate with all of your experience. So give me a call later today.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I'm going to be at the convention, but I would love to bring some friends with me. So if there's, I'll chat with you about any certain days that I should recommend some business folks to come versus other days. But I look forward to seeing everybody at the convention. It sounds like a great event, and I love that it's at the South Shore Cultural Center. That'll be amazing.
Yeah, the only time we're at Push is on Saturday. We're celebrating graduates, and Pete Buttigieg will be at Push Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. But we have graduates from 12. And Facebook is doing a whole training on Meta, and it's immersion. So be good to see you again.
That's exciting. Yeah. So those will be at Rainbow Push, not at the Cultural Center, you said?
Yeah. And then Cultural Center, we start on Sunday. Sunday night, we're at Fellowship with the Gospel Concert. Beautiful. Beautiful. Really trying to get women to realize that these issues that we look at narrowly as women, they affect the entire nation, the whole access to health care. Pay equity for women and other people of color in particular. Some people are working for jobs, so this voting time and changes really impact people who go from one job to the next. They don't have time to be looking for anything. You have to be mindful of that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the summertime, we're talking about women and families. Kids are out of school, as I very well know. My day got a little derailed yesterday because we're not in camp yet, right? And if we're juggling two jobs, kids out of school, trying to get people one place to another, and providing for the family, the last thing you need is to go to 4 different places to try to exercise your fundamental right to vote.
Can you hear her?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I can't hear her anymore.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Jeanette?
Yeah.
Okay, now I can hear you. Okay, let me do a quick mic test. Jeanette, just testing 1, 2. Jeanette, I need to hear you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, that's great. You sound great wherever you are. Erin, let me hear you.
This is Erin.
Okay, thank you. CK, let me hear you.
Good morning.
Okay, that you sound great. Attorney Jones, let me hear you.
Good morning, everybody.
Okay, all right. Just trying to make sure that everyone is situated on the mics properly. Okay, great. Perfect. Stand by. CK, we're going to come to you. because we didn't hear you at any place else. Hold on. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Thursday, June 9, 2022. It's a beautiful morning here in Chicago. It's a beautiful morning in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Hope it's a beautiful morning wherever you are. Just remember, even if it's raining, the sun is shining. Always know that. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you. We're talking about midterms 2022. Historically, people don't vote in high numbers in the midterms, but you should, because people are still elected. And there's a lot going on. Here in Chicago, we tend to look at voting problems, the lack of access to the vote. It's a Southern thing. It's not. It's an American dilemma, everyone. I'm bowing my head to Theodore Dreiser. It's an American dilemma. And in Chicago, for various and sundry reasons, up to 120,000 voters won't have access to their regular polling sites. We're talking about that and what it is that we can do to ensure that in Chicago on June 28th, when we have our primary, you will be able to know where you need to go vote. I mean, I think they could have a pop-up tent across the street from where you normally vote. Just do that, so people aren't, completely taken out of themselves. Think about that, everybody. 120,000 people, that's a lot of folks, everybody. A lot of folks. And they've had a lot of opportunities to try and get some things together. And I think we need to think creatively, particularly while it's warm. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. I want you to meet my morning stars over here. I want you to talk to us. Let's be engaged in this process. And we're going to have Dr. Max Wolf at the bottom of the hour talking about Uvalde and Buffalo and all of this gun violence and violence that we have in our country. It's something that concerns him greatly. And June 18th through the 22nd, please come to the Rainbow Push Coalition Convention. The first day, thank you, Dr. Reverend Jeanette Wilson. The first day will be at Rainbow Push, the headquarters in Hyde Park at 930 East 50th Street. We're going to have Pete Buttigieg. That's right, our secretary of Pete Buttigieg will be with us, and we're going to have Facebook is going to be sponsoring a seminar where you're going to learn how to use their new. They've rebranded themselves. They're a little new, but we got a lot going on. Women's luncheon, on and on and on. We've got a tremendous voting panel, and of course, Attorney Darrell Jones will be talking more about that. LaTosha Brown and so many others will be a part of that. And so let's just get to it. I want you to come to the convention because by that Sunday, we're going to be celebrating Juneteenth and Father's Day and all of that at the South Shore Cultural Center. You don't want to miss it. The food will be great. You're sitting on the lake in the summer heat. It's going to be fantastic, and we need to have you there. June 13th on Monday, I hope you all will meet me and Jonathan Jackson and Jennifer Bishop Jenkins and so many others as we have a town hall meeting at the New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church at 77th and Cottage Grove at 6 o'clock. I'm going to be moderating the discussion, but we want to hear from you. What do you think about this gun violence? What should we do about it? What should we do about the violence in America? In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 76 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 80 degrees, mostly sunny. The Dow closed down 269 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 88 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 44. In the NBA, well, the Celtics, they're on fire. They're leading the Warriors 2-1 in their series. Last night, the Celtics won 16, the Warriors 100. In the NHL, who is going to be playing for the Stanley Cup? We don't know yet. The Lightning and the Rangers, they're all tied up in their series. They will be playing tonight. In the WNBA, well, our Sky fell in a nail biter to the Mystics. The Mystics 84, the Sky 82. But the Sky's going to come on back. The Lynx had a little bit of time off. Major League Baseball, the Dodgers won, the White Sox won. They will be facing off against one another today, again at 1 p.m. And then the Twins 8, the Yankees 1. All right, Twins. And they're going to be facing off once again against one another tonight. And this weekend, they say we're going to get a glimpse of the long, hot summer that is projected. Everybody, a dangerous and deadly heat wave is on track to bake several southwestern states. Everybody, please be careful. That's according to CNN reporting. The House Select Committee investigating the U.S. Capitol insurrection on January 6th will hold its first primetime televised hearing. Will you be watching tonight at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? It will be live, everybody. It will be produced. It's supposed to be an incredible hearing. Everybody, please watch. They need to get good ratings. Seriously, they do. Because if you don't have good ratings, it disinclines the networks to carry hearings of this import. It's important for us to know what happened, and you need to be engaged. For their portion, Fox News will not be airing this. Wow, everybody. What do you think about that? Victims of the Uvalde Elementary School massacre and Buffalo gave firsthand descriptions of the horrors of gun violence at a House committee meeting yesterday in a pre-recorded video. 11-year-old Mia Cirillo, a fourth grader at the Robb Elementary School, described trying to hide behind her teacher's desk and covering herself in blood in an attempt to survive. And of course, she was on camera, but her father was at the hearing. And he said, my baby's been changed permanently by this. She's not the same girl who danced on TikTok. Think about that. Think of what she saw as we saw the doctor, the only pediatrician in the city of Uvalde. As he said, he described children decapitated, children's bodies so pulverized that they needed DNA to be identified. He said, I can't say a prayer that's going to help me to get over this, God bless him. God bless him. And then we heard a mother from Buffalo who invited the lawmakers to come clean her son's wounds. She said, yeah, why don't you help me to do that? Because young Zaire has a hole in the right side of his neck, 2 in his back, and another on his left leg, according to Santita Everhart. And we send our love to them, to her, and to Dr. Roy Guerrero, the only pediatrician in the city of Uvalde. Everybody, you know we're trying to get financial freedom here on the Santita Jackson Show. If you're purchasing a new home, if you need to refinance your existing home, if you need to secure a VA loan, if you need a reverse mortgage, if you need to even know what it is, if you don't have good credit, if you need to rebuild your credit or build your credit, call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com. Get in touch with them. You can get a free consultation no matter what your situation is. Tell them. They have dealt with everything, bankruptcies to just people who can't live on their pensions and who are living on their credit cards. So many people are. Well, they can help to dig you out of that financial hole. Just tell them what your situation is. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, and join thousands of WCPT listeners who have given them 5-star Google reviews and who've gotten their help, who've been able to get out of this financial pit because of their work. There's a young man named David, not to be confused with David Hochberg, who said, my wife and I make good money, but we still had $45,000 worth of credit card debt. I know that sounds familiar to some of you. And they reached out to Team Hochberg. They were able to pay off this $45,000 credit card debt, and they were able to save $1,000 a month. Now, that could be you. That could be you. So go on and call 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit 56david.com. Let's talk about the vote in Chicago, everybody. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. What do you think about really not being told. I think, CK, I think that's part of the problem. There's not a real, we make a real effort to chase folks down for debts and on and on and on. But when it comes to our vote, not so much. Not so much. 120,000 people could be impacted by these precinct closures. What do you make of this? Because of course, something at the heart of your presidency as the president of the National Bar Association, Attorney C.K. Hoffler.
Morning, Santita, to the panel. Well, what I think about this is done intentionally and by design. When Barbara Arnwine years ago talked about voter suppression, this was years ago. She's the mother of the election protection movement. When she talked about voter suppression, she did this map of shame in this country. This is exactly, Santita, what voter suppression looks like. This is exactly what it looks like. We experienced it in Georgia. And in Georgia, much like people are realizing and doing now, groups of activists, grassroots organizations, civil rights organizations, like Rainbow Push, like Transformative Justice Coalition, and Black Voters Matter Fund, so many, mobilized and infiltrated and populated and dominated the disenfranchised community, voting community, educated them to ensure that they were registered to vote. And then we, a group of lawyers, instituted litigation on behalf of who we felt, on behalf of 4 organizations. We instituted litigation because of the close to 200,000 voters in Georgia that we believe was stricken from the vote. That's what we've seen in the past, and that was during the presidential elections. That was during the Senate runoff elections, and there was a lot of momentum. Our greatest nightmare is coming to fruition in a place in Chicago and Illinois that people in the South have the perception that if you're more progressive, you're more intuitive, you're more advanced, you're more sophisticated. That's the perception. But what we're seeing here is that the same engines of voter suppression are more aggressive, more intuitive, more sophisticated, more dominant, and more successful in what they're doing. Whether it's 60,000 voters or 120,000 voters, they are mostly Black and brown voters. This is voter suppression against people of color and people who are poor, people who are disenfranchised. And that is the greatest nightmare. So in this short turnaround time, the focus is to be what can we do? And we've got to not forget about gun control, gun violence. Santita, you talked about the hearings that took place. Your show yesterday, our law and legal show yesterday, focused, quite frankly, on the same issues that were accentuated at the hearing. We just didn't have those victims, the victim impact statement. That was the only difference. But Smith & Wesson, Remington Outdoor, Stern Ruger Company, Sig Sauer, O.F. Mossberg & Sons, Savage Arms, Springfield Armory, Beretta, Taurus International, and Glock, we need to call their names every day, all the time, because all of this is connected to voter suppression. How is it connected? Because if you are disenfranchised, if you don't have the ability to vote, if you have no voting precinct to go to, and as you said yesterday, you're all dressed up and nowhere to go to do what is most important in this country, which is cast your right to vote, cast your vote, and as Darrell Jones has always said, plan to vote and vote your plan. When that is stricken from you, which is what this amounts to, and you don't have the ability to do that, we are sinking deeper into an abyss. And you can't vote against those officials on the ballot who are too afraid to stand up to the gun lobbyists. You can't vote for those who are on the ballot who are not as progressive as maybe you are. You can't vote for those who are on the ballot who support the striking down of Roe versus Wade. You can't vote for those who are on the ballot who have been very vocal and supporting things that you feel are oppressive to your community. That's what this is about. It's all connected. So, Santita, when I think about the number of trial lawyers, Reverend Wilson, that we have and lawyers in this country that could make an impact on this issue that perhaps have not been as mobilized because we're in the midterm. This is our greatest nightmare. During the presidential election, everybody is rah-rah focused. During the midterms, we know that there's a big drop. But I can tell you in Georgia, there wasn't a big drop. So we have to try to mirror and mimic what we're seeing in places like Georgia in these elections, despite the voter suppression, because this voter suppression is everywhere. But when I hear numbers like 120,000, 60,000, that tells me there needs to be litigation. That's what that says, Santita. I'm just horrified and disgusted about.
And so what are they doing? You at Rainbow Push, you all are rallying clergy who see people 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. I mean, the church is still the hub for most Americans. So what is Rainbow Push doing? What are other organizations doing? What should be done? Reverend Wilson.
What we're doing is we're calling pastors to begin to announce these closings and to have people check where you to vote now. Check me to vote. We're in the midst of early voting. We're urging people to vote early. The early voting sites have been distributed, so we're asking pastors to help communicate messages. Secondly, we're going to call on lawyers. As CK said, normally lawyers fight really activate around presidential elections. These midterms are far more important because you're electing the local officials, state reps, state senators, county commissioners, county sheriffs, and congressional leaders. And at least one of your U.S. senators will be running for election this season. So everybody that we need to vote for right now, they are running now. And so what we're going to be doing is mobilizing the voices. We're going to talk to other radio stations who've not sounded the alarm. You have, so we'll be contacting those, and then we got to post in social media. Our young people, the young adults that we really are trying to reach, they're in social media. They're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and other platforms. So we have to launch an all-out campaign about voting. And so I thank you for sounding the alarm for people. Every one of these internet stations, every station needs to be pushing. You better know where you go to vote. And all of us have to check because they keep changing these places.
That's, because that's, because Reverend Attorney Wilson, that's the problem. Stop playing the game with me. I already know that the whole point is for me not to vote. I get that. But whether it's the Gold Coast or the Soul Coast, I got a problem with the fact, because this is downtown, but it's everywhere. And some people are going to go to their precincts, wherever their precincts are, and the machines are not going to work. Or you're going to tell me, like you told me several years ago, and I'm still traumatized. Oh, you voted at after 6 this morning. I'm like, sweetie, wait a minute. Now, you can look at me, and all of you watching me on Facebook, I wear the war paint every morning. I get myself together before I walk out. I don't walk out unless I'm completely done. Okay? And I said, you didn't see me this morning, and you know you didn't. You know you didn't. Oh, no, you were here. Well, we'll give you a provisional ballot. I said, you're not going to do that either, because I don't trust that. Now I'm going to step into this booth, and I'm going to vote at Rainbow Push at 773 Freedom. But you'll get us the numbers as well. But I want to get Aaron and Attorney Jones in very quickly. Attorney Jones, very quickly, give us a quick primer on what it is that we need to do if we get to the polls, because we still have more primaries. What if you get there and you find out that your precinct is closed? What do you do?
If you get there and you find that your precinct is closed, the first thing you want to do is call 866-OUR-VOTE, 866-OUR-VOTE. You also want to go to the website for elections.illinois.gov to find out where your polling place is. You've got to get to your polling place. The most important thing, in addition to that, is that there are precinct workers that are there. There is a head person that's there at that polling place. They should be able to tell you where you're going. If there is no one there and the doors are closed, go, vote.org. It'll show you a voting place. You've got to find out where your polling place is. Let me quickly say this to Santita, and I've listened keenly to what's happening there. What frustrates me most about what we're hearing that happened in Chicago is this. that they petitioned the courts to close polling places. They petitioned the courts. That means they knew what they were doing. They intentionally went after this. And then after they received that, they didn't have a plan in place to notify the voters about what was happening. That's voter suppression 101. I mean, that's the ultimate. You know, what we need right now is we need people to go and check your voting status, check your polling place, find out where it is that you are supposed to go and vote. Don't let them hold your vote hostage. Find out where it is you are supposed to go and vote. You've got to be this voting rights champion right now. Get the information and don't let them do this to you. You know, again, I respect all that's being said, but we've got to be certain that people know where to go to vote, because as Aaron, I believe, was saying a little earlier, you have a lot of things on your plate as you're going through your day, fitting that voting in, you have it in a construct, you have it in a place. Please plan out that vote, find out where it is that you're going to vote, and then go vote the plan that you've got in place, Santita.
Oh, amen to that. Aaron, you got the final word in this last minute.
Well, I think the resources that Attorney Daryl Jones talked about are exactly what you should do, right? But we have to take our vote in our hands, be proactive, check your precincts on your voter registration card, verify on either the Board of Elections website if you're in the city of Chicago, on your county website if you're in the suburbs. And I'm hoping that you hear from at least a couple candidates that are running in your area to confirm these details. Again, I'm pitching out there to the candidates to do your part to make sure that people are voting. Don't just talk to your voters. We gotta bring new people into this process. So, and thank you, Santita, for talking about this really important issue.
Oh, don't be fooled.
And we cannot afford to have that low turnout. We have to take our vote.
That's right.
So
that's
we
right.
still have to go up.
And I'm going to tell you, wherever someone's vote is threatened, I'm concerned. Because, see, I'm very clear. You know, I remember when they shut down Italy, when they shut down Wuhan, China, I said, well, that's going to come here. They shut down Italy. I said, that's coming here. They shut down a fourth of Italy. I said, oh, no. This is a testing 1, 2, 3. And then the whole country of the United States and then the world was shut down. What's past is prologue, everybody. And be very, very clear. What happens to someone else can also and will in all likelihood, given spiritual law being what it is going to happen to you. So we ought to be concerned about the vote, not my vote, not your vote, but the vote. So we need to know, thank you, Attorney Jones. He was like, wait a minute, there was a lawsuit filed. Oh, we can chase this back. They had planned for these sites to be closed, but no one said anything. And that ought to infuriate you to action, not to some kind of crazy violent action. No, get out there and get registered to vote and make sure that you vote. Make sure your neighbors vote. If the elderly need some help, make sure they vote. And look, I think mail-in ballots are great, but I like going to the poll. I sure do. I believe in that. I like pulling that lever or whatever it is that we do. That's what I want to do. So let's find out. And we're going to continue, Reverend Wilson, to talk about this until we get some satisfaction. We're going to be reconvening tomorrow to talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about these hearings yesterday. That's right, Uvalde and Buffalo. Did you see that mother from Buffalo? She said, why don't you all come and clean out my son's wounds? Help me do that. What about Dr. Guerrero, the only pediatrician in Uvalde? Said, I saw decapitated children, pulverized bodies. You got to talk about that. And these people need to stop playing these games. You don't need military weapons on the streets. You don't need them. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Okay, you guys, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow because I'm going to continue to push this because I want to know what people are voting. Because I'd be very warm and confused if my regular site were closed. Huh?
I'm going now. You don't need me any longer, right?
Oh, well, yeah, I've got Dr. Wolf. Well, I always need you, but I got Dr. Wolf, but thank you. And plus, I can hear you running right now anyway. I mean,
Thank you so much.
I got that. That was very like, thank you very much. That's it. You don't need me, right? Click. Okay. See, you're getting to that age where you just gonna start hanging up. So okay, I got you. See?
No, I'm not going to just hang up.
No, you are.
I have Dr. Wolf on the line.
Old folks do it. My parents don't even say goodbye now. They're just like, click. Like, what? Are we done?
That's what your daddy always did.
And my mother does it. They've been married almost 60 years. Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm going to reach out to Mr. Goff today and June if you give me her number too.
Yeah, he's no longer the executive director. He's a consultant. And he
Okay.
says, well, you need to call the press person. I said, no, you better give me the information.
Yeah. I don't want to talk. I don't want that. So I need you to help me get them today. Help me, please.
Okay.
Because people need to know where they need to go vote. This is ridiculous.
Aaron,
All right.
I'll call you later about the convention, if that's okay.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. You need Aaron's help. And you know what? State Representative Rodriguez should be there. Ramirez. Rodriguez. Well, I'm getting my people confused. I got a lot of people. Delia. Oh no, because I've got all these names like floating through my head. But she needs to be there. You know, we have an opportunity to send this young woman to Congress, Jeanette, and she, you know, I think only 3% of the Congress has Latino women, has Latinas. That's ridiculous. And she's a progressive, and she probably have her mother and father at the luncheon. Her father has got kidney cancer, and her parents are working 3 jobs trying to come up with one health insurance plan.
If you could send me her number, I'll call her.
Okay. And Aaron, I'm going to leave that to you.
Absolutely.
You're going to talk to her later today, okay?
Okay. Let's make that happen because people should know that she and her family have our support, Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you, Santita.
Oh no, I have so much appreciation for her. I've got to call her back because I've got to get her back on here. But you all have been so wonderful about that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Okay. All right. Hey, everybody, sending you much love. Okay, so she's going to call you today, Jeanette. If you all don't connect, call me. Let's make that happen. Who? Oh, Dr. Wolf?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
How are you?
I am doing all right, hon. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Yesterday.
What you say?
I haven't been shot yesterday. I don't want to gloat, but I haven't been shot yesterday.
You know.
30 seconds. One of the few. That's
You
what I
know
think is
what?
the problem.
I need to, you know what? And see, when I get you and Jonathan together, it is like the worst thing in the world for me because I can't keep my cool as a radio
50
host.
seconds.
I can't.
One of your team guests this morning as well.
No, you all and this. No, he's not with us today. No, he's he's elsewhere. But you all and this dry, droll, awful sense of humor. Oh my God.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey everybody, welcome. Santita Jackson Show. We've been talking about these closed precincts in Chicago. Please go to vote.org, so that you can make sure that you have not been purged from the voter rolls. But 1-866-OUR-VOTE is the number that you also need to call so that you can, if you on election day, if you find you have a problem, do not leave the polling site. Stay right in that line, stay right where you are and call them at 1-866-OUR-VOTE. And you can go to vote.org right now. Not only can you find out if you have been purged from the rolls, if you're still a registered voter, you can also find out where you need to go vote. 120,000 Chicagoans will be impacted by the closing of these 73 precincts. And we're going to stay on top of this story through June 28th, when we have the primary. June 18th through the 22nd, Rainbow Push International Conference. Of course, on the 18th, we'll be at 930 East 50th Street, the international headquarters of Rainbow Push. And then 19th through the 22nd, we'll be at the South Shore Cultural Center. You do not want to miss it. And of course, Sunday night, we will be having the Reverend Clay Evans concert. Of course, the concert honoring the chairman emeritus of Rainbow Push and Operation Push, our beloved pastor, Reverend Clay Evans. You will have Donnie McClurkin, Vicki Winans, Pastor Darius Brooks, and the Tommies. It is something that you should not miss, everybody. Let's talk about, we saw Mcconaughey, an actor who is an activist, someone who's a citizen, really. He's a citizen. And we saw him at the White House giving such an impassioned plea for lawmakers to come together and enact some common sense gun legislation. Take these military grade weapons off of our streets. He's from Uvalde, Texas. And he really, you could see the pain because that's his community. He grew up there. And then we saw yesterday, Mia Cirillo and her father. Now, young Mia, 11 years of age, she covered herself in blood so that the killer would think, so that Mr. Ramos would think that, Salvador Ramos thought that maybe she's dead too. So she described in chilling detail what she witnessed. And then her father, Miguel, who was in Washington, he said, "This is not our Mia. This is not our TikTok dancer. This is not our playful Mia, She's been changed by watching this horror." And then, of course, we saw the only pediatrician in Uvalde, Dr. Roy Guerrero, who talked in chilling detail about watching the decapitated children. He said, I was trained to save lives. I wasn't trained to see this, to see decapitated children whose bodies were so pulverized we couldn't identify them. That's why we had to get DNA. Let's not sanitize this, everybody. Let's not sanitize it. And then you saw Santita Everhart, who is the mother of Buffalo victim Zaire. She invited the lawmakers to come and help clean her son's bullet wounds caused by the AR-15. Yeah, the same kind of rifle that pulverized these children in Uvalde. She said, "My son has a hole on the right side of his neck, 2 in his back, and another on his left leg. And guess what? She has to clean those wounds in order to keep him alive." So let's talk with you, Dr. Max Wolf, because you've got a baby. And I've taken her on as my godchild. And I have to say, it is really unsettling when you think of young Mia, who will be forever changed by this. Only heaven knows how this child's going to be changed. Can you imagine having to cover yourself in blood to pretend that you are dead so someone won't shoot you? Unbelievable. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think sometimes things come to a head in history, and sometimes many things come to a head around the same time. It seems like maybe COVID has accelerated all kinds of things coming out into the light here, and clearly we are in the midst of a sort of gun pandemic and a mental health pandemic, both. And I think that having those two things come together with the desocialization of America, people spend a lot of time feeling betrayed, alone inside, and away from each other, feeling threatened. And then if you add to that whatever mental health care issues may have pre-existed, whichever ones kind of came out of the blue in the long shadow of COVID, which continues to be a product, and then the sort of national tension to attempt to solve social problems alone with a firearm in an uncoordinated fashion, you get this, right? You get the sort of daily shooting spree. And as horrible as that is, I feel like it might be less surreal than the debate we started to have around this, where people are so beholden to these ideas. And again, obviously the gun lobby is a part of the story, but I don't think it's the whole story. I think it's a sort of twilight for toxic manhood here. And we're asking a lot of people to suffer and die in the name of that. Mostly young men, but not only. Right? has a plan of what she's going to do or he's going to do when a shooter enters their classroom, because they have to, and they have to think about that. And then every kid thinks about that with increasing severity and regularity, from the smallest rural schools to the biggest urban schools, right? It's really that's cut across. I think just that's the sort of national tragedy that we won't admit. You know, and then because I'm an economist and we have so little to offer, myself particularly, I always try to think about the financial angle, at least I can offer that a little bit. And I think we're spending about $250 billion a year taking care of gunshot wounds, which nobody mentions, right? So the lives lost, the money spent. Imagine what we could build. That's $1 trillion every 4 years. That's what a national public transit system costs. So we've decided to endanger our kids, to indulge a manhood fantasy from the 18th century, and to spend $200 billion a year, and a lot of our life blood, literally, in service of that, right? What does an emergency look like in an urban area that isn't dealing with gunshot wounds? What else could the doctors do? What else could the $200 billion do? What else could those young lives do but die on the altar of someone that's potency? And I understand the argument that you should be able to resist your government. But it would be really nice if people who felt that strongly about having a gun felt that strongly about voting and running for office. Because that's actually the way you're supposed to shape your government, right? And when all these people decide they're going to use their gun against the government, it might be worth reminding us all that we are a democracy. That kind of means we're going to use it against us. Because ruled by the people, if you're facing up against that with your firearm, oops. Right? We're the people. And unfortunately, that does seem to be who we're getting shot, too. Right? And I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone here, right? Obviously, I don't want my finger blown off. If I pointed in public, that'd be a big possibility. But the point is, I think we're way past the real moment here. We're having a debate about whether this is a problem, which is interrupted by the next mass shooting every day. It's a third of a bad Monty Python. Yeah. And the whole rest of the world tries to figure this out because somehow this inevitability only happens here. Right? And I guess the rest of the world tries to figure out why we love putting our hand up.
You know, we're talking with Dr. Max Wolf about, you know, what are we going to do about really achieving civilization? Really, because that's really what it comes down to. You know, we hear politicians come and say after we've had these shootings, this is not who we are. Oh, no, no, no. This is who we are. But this is not who we have to be. You know, remember, it was people who took our government planes, the white citizens of Tulsa, who then flew the planes over the black part of Tulsa and dropped bombs. It's the first time we've had bombs dropped in the United States on our soil. We did it to our own citizens. We have an incredibly violent history. Ask the indigenous people. But do we have to continue? No, we don't. All you had to do was listen to Dr. Guerrero, Dr. Wolf, hearing this man describe the injuries of these children, hearing this mother say, wait a minute, I've got to clean out my son's wounds every day throughout the day because I don't want him to get sick and die. I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, I also think that I understand the argument of resisting the tyranny or tyrannic impulse of government. It may be more pressing now in America than unfortunately in many other places in this country. I also am loosely familiar with the development of military weaponry since 1850. And I have bad news. It's really moved forward. So the individual firearm really not decisive. Maybe the last time it was a big deal was around the Franco-Prussian War. And if you haven't heard of that recently, it's because it wasn't recent. It was 150 years ago. So the idea that you're going to face off against law enforcement or the government for any significant period of time or to any successful outcome with an individual firearm is delusional to the point of questioning mental health. You can shoot at someone in law enforcement, which is a terrible thing to do, and will nearly guarantee that you are shot. But it will not end your interaction with law enforcement. Right? Nor will it result in a successful outcome for whatever your political beliefs are. So the idea that these firearms are important as a way to overthrow or limit the power of the central government is absurd. Unfortunately, at least for now, and who knows for how long, this is a democracy. You can do that at the polling place. And if we can bring some of this passion and engagement that we have around the Second Amendment to support the other amendments too, and to maybe even learn them, and then go to the polls and vote accordingly for whatever your political religions are, I think we'd be better off twice. Once for the reduction in gun violence, and once for the reduction, in apathy or the increase in engagement. And the last thing I'll mention, because we never remember it, somehow is armed citizens never shoot back. When they try to, they usually shoot each other by accident because it's chaotic. It's a nice idea, works in action movies. It's basically got a 0 success rate for a while. So it's a good suggestion if it works, but it doesn't. Just like challenging the government with individual firearms is a reasonably interesting suggestion if it works, but it doesn't. And then the last thing we always forget in our gun debate, just to bring this up, is most people in America who are killed with a firearm in any given year take their own life. A bit more than half. So the presence of a second gun or more guns in that environment only works if you think they will shoot the gun out of one hand with the other, which seems improbable.
Everybody, I want you to call me. Call me at 773-763-9278. Let's speak with Dr. Wolf about this. I mean, think about what we're doing here. Think about this, because this is very real stuff. And, the mass shootings have continued. We have more guns in the United States than we have citizens. And we have had, on average, 11 mass shootings a week in the 23 weeks. In 22 weeks, the 22 weeks that have been 2022, more 246. That's on average 11 plus 4 and change mass shootings a week. What are we doing? And why do you need a military grade weapon? I am sorry. And why are we not talking to and talking about, not the lobbyists? The NRA is not your problem. The NRA used to advocate for gamers. The NRA changed their mission when they became corporatized, when the gun manufacturers overtook them. Now the people need to overtake the NRA and demand something sane. We need to deal with these gun manufacturers, Max. Let me call Earl. Earl has called in with a comment. Earl, what's on your mind?
Hi, Santita. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
What I wanted to say was make sure we're good. I'm going to tie two things together at once. Just like what we saw on 1/6, how the people attacked the Capitol, I'm going to say that was due to messaging. That was due to someone putting out a certain message over time that convinced these people that this was going to be a time to attack the government and make a change. And so I'm saying with the gun thing, which we were talking about, like we've had 400 years of prejudice against black people and institutional racism, we're going to have a number more years of gun violence because the representatives and the senators don't think that they're going to lose their seats by not supporting any gun legislation. You've been talking about how we need to vote. I completely agree with you. But there is a definite message, just like you just been saying, to convince people that you need the guns. It's a right to bear arms, and they're conflating the two. And these senators and representatives, they don't believe that they're going to use their state to power. And as long as that messaging is out there, we're not going to have anything significantly done to curtail this down society. That's how I feel, Santita. It's bad to say, but that's what I believe.
Well, I mean, look, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that because, there's, I think that you're reflective, Mr. Earl, of a lot of feelings that people have out here. I mean, and when you hear him, Dr. Wolf, it's it's very interesting that you say, wait a minute, you're watching. There is a strain out here of people who want to resist the government, and encoded in the American DNA is that. I mean, because the country was born out of resistance to the British government. So I get that. But what was introduced into this garment called America was nonviolence by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And Bayard Rustin said of Dr. King, part of his genius and divinity was that he led a nonviolent revolution when it could have been violent and there could have been plenty of bloodshed. And relatively speaking, the revolution that Dr. King led there was very, very little blood. And therefore the blood that was shed was the blood of the martyrs. But there's something that I think that we're not seeing, Dr. Wolf, and I need you to help me with that. Something that I think we might be refusing to see in ourselves. People who we're allowing to be excluded from the conversation. We're allowing corporate media to protect by not mentioning, like we protect by not mentioning all these young men who've been committing all of these murders. We don't want to mention them because we want to protect them and we want to protect their families so that their families and their communities can produce more murderers. But we want to protect the gun manufacturers because they make a lot of money, Max. At least one of these companies is as old as the Republic. I mean, what are we doing?
So certainly gun manufacturers have a hand, but I feel like they may have lost control of this debate in some level, right? Plus these little small companies like the Daniel Defense Group that's been in the news a lot around the Raleigh shooting. These are not massive conglomerates. Right? They do throw a lot of money around, and they do tend to throw it to particular politicians who tend, for whatever set of mysterious reasons, to have their best interest in heart, church of ideological companionship. And they do tend to have a partisan tinge sometimes, and they get money too. But I think this is about imagining who's powerful, whose country is it. It's tied up in that, right? So I think it's my country, and I'm powerful, and if I feel challenged in either of those things, my potency, my power, my country, then I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to square things away, right? Whether it's as a vigilante, as a militia member, as a law-abiding citizen, as a, guarding my cul-de-sac. And we've seen versions of that turn needlessly fatal for young people often, and the people again and again and again, right? Whether it's a guy who's going to be gunned down by some maniac committing the risque act of jogging, or a bunch of kids walking on the wild side by going to school, or some people with a bad case of the surgeon in the hospital, or it's folks going Christmas shopping, part of the dark ritual of our Christmas season, how involved as well. Look, it seems to stalk all over the place, but it seems to have a lot of correlation with people who have a probably untreated mental illness, who are in the mall, in these places, trying to show how powerful they are, be important, get on the news, and they don't see another path. And they are channeled by those voices on repeat that this is your path, right? Sometimes more subtly, there's plausible deniability, sometimes not even so subtle. And the internet has been a gathering place for extreme voices, left, right, of all types, including the sort of more fringy gun folks. I think it also has to do with not enforcing the laws we do have. So I'm all for talking about some new regulations which seem needed. But I also think there's been some really interesting studies that a very high portion, north of 60% of these people, come from homes with domestic violence and are often perpetrators of domestic violence. And there have been attempts to make sure that people who are guilty of perpetrating domestic violence can't get firearms. And we don't force them. We don't do it. And since an awful lot of them seem to be shooters, my point is there's probably a lot of good creative solutions that come along with thinking through who's actually doing this and thinking through who's actually doing this along the lines of what the media says, not our imagination. Right? So as a country, our imagination tends to run to the inherent weaknesses of young black men, but the data shows that it's middle-aged white guys. Although in the news very recently, some very younger white guys, it's often not so young. So let's talk about who's actually doing it, not who our sort of usual suspects are. And let's address that, right? Because who your usual suspects are tells you about who you feel okay that's treated a lot more than who perpetrates crime. Almost all the time, almost every
and I think we're being forced into an honest, earnest moment. Let me bring on Brian very quickly. Brian, I need you. Got a couple of minutes left. Want to give you a minute for your comment, Brian.
Okay, good morning, Santita.
Good morning.
Santita, the thing of it is this talk of assault rifles stopping tanks or such unrealistic. I'm in favor of legally obtained handguns for self-defense only. FBI statistics at the end of the two Reagan administrations show murder rate up 22%. Dateline report 1993. More of that law and order from the first Bush. Violent crime amongst teenagers up 55%. We must immediately discuss unfair economic conditions, connection between that and the rise of violent crimes. Unrealistic and unjust economic conditions lead to more violence, is my point.
Well, you know what, Brian? So what you're saying is you want to look at the intersectionality. You want to see the social, political, and cultural conditions that are pushing people to behave violently. Am I getting you right?
That's exactly correct, yes.
Okay. You know, I hear you. I think it's, I think, so what do you make of this? The last 90 seconds belong to you, Max.
Look, I think we just got good exercise. The majority of the American public can't face to face just how little their lives matter to the people who run this country. Whether that was folks at work or folks discussing remedies or PPE or protecting the general public against sort of lingering virus. And we saw both political parties, but particularly one, decide that telling people what they wanted to hear was worth doing probably a couple $100,000 of them. We just gave the people of this country a lesson in how little their lives were worth, how scary the future was, and how alone they were. At the end of which, we armed them to the teeth and told them good luck. So I'm not sure that it's fair to be altogether shocked by this outcome. But it is a good opportunity to ask the harder questions about if you want people to act reasonably, you have to give them something to look forward to and something to live through. And if the only thing that can make a young man feel powerful in the world is the tool of death, you'll use it.
Everybody, profound words from Dr. Max Wolf. If you want to hear the podcast of the show, go to WCPT820.com/Santita. We have all of those shows from the first show I've done right there on WCPT820.com/Santita. On Monday, we're going to be talking about this topic. Dr. Wolf, I wish we could zoom you in. Jonathan Jackson will be having a town hall meeting at 77th and Cottage Grove at the New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church. I'm going to be moderating the discussion, but there will be a whole panel of esteemed journalists who will be asking questions of the panel and of the audience. You will get a chance to voice your concerns and your observations about gun violence and really violence in America. I'm going to do that. And then 18th through the 20th of June, I want you to go to rainbowpush.org. Morning Stars, I hope to see you there. It's free. Pete Buttigieg will be at the convention. The Assistant Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General for Civil Rights will be at the convention. We're going to have a magnificent gospel night. Of course, it's the Clay Evans Memorial Concert. Donnie McClurkin, Vicki Winans, the Tommies and Darius Brooks. It's going to be fabulous. Then, if you want to know about how to get into business in all areas of life, you can do that. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Blessings. Dr. Wolf, I'm sending you much love. Huh?